Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. All glories to His divine grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And it's time for Krishna book. We are reading in Volume 2, Chapter 21, the battle between Salva and the Yadu Dynasty. While Sukadeva Goswami was narrating various activities of Lord Krishna in playing the role of an ordinary human being, he also narrated the history of the battle between the dynasty of Yadu and a demon of the name Salva, who had managed to possess a wonderful airship named Soba. King Salva was a great friend of Shishupal's. When Shishupal went to marry Rukmini, Salva was one of the members of the bridegroom's party. When there was a fight between the soldiers of the Yadu dynasty and the kings of the opposite side, Salva was defeated by the soldiers of the Yadu dynasty. But, despite his defeat, he made a promise before all the kings that he would in the future rid the whole world of all the members of the Yadu dynasty. Since his defeat in the fight during the marriage of Rukmini, he had maintained within himself an unforgettable envy of Lord Krishna. He was, in fact, a fool, because he promised to kill Krishna. Usually such foolish demons take shelter of a demigod like Lord Shiva to execute their ulterior plans. And so Salva, in order to get strength, took shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Shiva. He underwent a severe type of austerity during which he would eat no more than a handful of ashes daily. Lord Shiva, the husband of Parvati, is generally very merciful. He becomes very quickly satisfied if someone undertakes severe austerities in order to please him. So, after continued austerities by Salva for 1 year, Lord Shiva became pleased with him and asked him to beg for the fulfillment of his desire. Salva begged from Lord Shiva the gift of an airplane, which would be so strong it could not be destroyed by any demigod, any demon, human being, Gandharva, Naga, or even by any Rakshasa. Moreover, he desired that the airplane be able to fly anywhere and everywhere he would like to pilot it, and be specifically very dangerous and fearful to the dynasty of the Yadus. Lord Shiva immediately agreed to give him the benediction, and Salva took the help of the demon Maya to manufacture this iron airplane, which was so strong and formidable, no one could crash it. It was a very big machine, almost like a big city, and it could fly so high and at such great speed that it was almost impossible to see where it was, and so there was no question of attacking it. Although it might be dark outside, the pilot could fly it anywhere and everywhere. Having acquired such a wonderful airplane, Salva flew it to the city of Dwarka, because his main purpose in obtaining the airplane was to attack the city of the Yadus, toward whom he maintained a continual feeling of animosity. Salva thus not only attacked the city of Dwarka from the sky, but he also surrounded the city by a large number of infantry. The soldiers on the surface began to attack the beautiful spots of the city. They began to destroy the baths, the city gates, the palaces, and the skyscraper houses, the high walls around the city, and the beautiful spots where the people would gather for recreation. While the soldiers were attacking on the surface, the airplane began to drop big slabs of stone, tree trunks, thunderbolts, poisonous snakes, and many other dangerous things. Salva also managed to create such a strong whirlwind within the city that all of Dwarka became dark because of the dust that covered the sky. The airplane occupied by Salva put the entire city of Dwarka into distress, equal to that caused on the earth long, long ago by the disturbing activities of Tripurasura. The inhabitants of Dwarkapuri became so harassed they were not in a peaceful condition for even a moment. The great heroes of Dwarka city, headed by commanders such as Pradyumna, counterattacked the soldiers and the airplane of Salva. When he saw the extreme distress of the citizens, Pradyumna immediately arranged his soldiers and personally got up on a chariot, encouraging the citizens by assuring safety. Following his command, many soldiers like Satyaki, Charudeshna, and Samba, all younger brothers of Pradyumna, as well as Akrura, Kritavarma, Bhanuvinda, Gada, Sukha, and Charana, all came out of the city to fight with Salva. All of them were great fighters. Each one could fight with thousands of men. All were fully equipped with necessary weapons and assisted by hundreds and thousands of charioteers, elephants, horses, and infantry soldiers. Fierce fighting began between the two parties, exactly as formerly carried on between the demigods and the demons. The fighting was very severe, and whoever observed the fierce nature of the fight felt his hair stand on end. Pradyumna immediately counteracted the mystic demonstration occasioned by the airplane of Salva, the king of Soba. By the mystic power of the airplane, Salva had created a darkness as dense as night, but Pradyumna all of a sudden appeared like the rising sun. As with the rising of the sun, the darkness of night is immediately dissipated, so, with the appearance of Pradyumna, the power exhibited by Salva became null and void. Each and every one of Pradyumna's arrows had a golden feather at the end, and the shaft was fitted with a sharp iron edge. By releasing 25 such arrows, Pradyumna severely injured Salva's commander-in-chief. He then released another 100 arrows toward the body of Salva. After this, he pierced each and every soldier by releasing 1 arrow, and he killed the chariot drivers by firing 10 arrows at each one of them. The carriers, like the horses and elephants, were killed by the release of 3 arrows directed toward each one of them. When everyone present on the battlefield saw this wonderful feat of Pradyumna, the great fighters on both sides began to praise his acts of chivalry. But still, the airplane, occupied by Salva, was very mysterious. It was so extraordinary that sometimes there would appear to be many airplanes in the sky, and sometimes it would appear there were none. Sometimes it was visible, and sometimes it was not visible, and the warriors of the Yadu dynasty became puzzled about the whereabouts of the peculiar airplane. Sometimes they would see the airplane on the ground, and sometimes they would see it flying in the sky. Sometimes they would see the airplane resting on the peak of a hill, and sometimes it was seen floating on the water. The wonderful airplane was flying in the sky like a firefly in the wind. It was not steady, even for a moment. But, despite the mysterious maneuvering of the airplane, the commanders and soldiers of the Yadu dynasty would immediately rush towards Salva wherever he was present with his airplane and soldiers. The arrows released by the dynasty of Yadu were as brilliant as the sun and dangerous as the tongues of serpents. All the soldiers fighting on behalf of Salva soon became distressed by the incessant release of arrows upon them by the heroes of the Yadu dynasty, and Salva himself became unconscious from the attack of these arrows. The soldiers and the fighters fighting on behalf of Salva were also very strong. The release of their arrows also harassed the heroes of the Yadu dynasty. But still, the Yadus were so strong and determined, they did not move from their strategic positions. The heroes of the Yadu dynasty were determined to either die in the battlefield or gain victory. They were confident of the fact that if they died in the fighting, they would attain a heavenly planet, and if they were to come out victorious, they would enjoy the world. The name of Salva's commander-in-chief was Juman. He was very powerful, and although bitten by 25 of Pradyumna's arrows, he suddenly attacked Pradyumna with his fierce club and struck him so strongly that Pradyumna became unconscious. Immediately there was a roaring. "Now he's dead! Now he's dead!" The force of the club on the chest of Pradyumna was very severe, enough to tear asunder the chest of an ordinary man. Pradyumna's chariot was being driven by the son of Dwaraka. According to Vedic military principles, the chariot driver and the hero on the chariot have to cooperate during the fighting. As such, it was the duty of the chariot driver to take care of the hero on the chariot during the dangerous and precarious fighting on the battlefield. Thus, Dwaraka removed the body of Pradyumna from the battlefield. 2 hours later, in a quiet place, Pradyumna regained his consciousness, and when he saw that he was in a place other than the battlefield, he addressed the charioteer and condemned him. "Oh, you've done the most abominable act. Why have you moved me from the battlefield? My dear charioteer, I've never heard that anyone in our family was ever removed from the battlefield. None of them left the battlefield while fighting. By this removal you've overburdened me with a great defamation. It will be said that I left the battlefield while fighting was going on. My dear charioteer, I must accuse you. You are a coward and emasculator. Tell me, how can I go before my uncle Balaram, before my father Krishna? What shall I say before them? Everyone will talk about me and say that I fled from the fighting place. And if they inquire from me about this, what will be my reply? My sisters-in-law will play jokes upon me with sarcastic words. My dear hero, how have you become such a coward? How have you become such a eunuch? How have you become so low in the eyes of the fighters who opposed you? I think, my dear charioteer, you've committed a great offense by removing me from the battlefield." The charioteer of Pradyumna replied, "My dear sir, I wish a long life for you. I think I did not do anything wrong, as it is the duty of the charioteer to help the fighter in the chariot when he's in precarious condition. My dear sir, you are completely competent on the battlefield activities. It's the mutual duty of the charioteer and the warrior to give protection to each other in a precarious condition. I was completely aware of the regulative principles of fighting, and I did my duty. The enemy all of a sudden struck you with his club so severely you lost consciousness. You were in a dangerous position, surrounded by your enemies. Therefore, I was obliged to act as I did." Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purport of the second volume, 21st chapter of Krishna, the battle between Salva and members of the Yadu dynasty.